When you hear the word Islam, what comes to mind? For some, unfortunately, it's violence, conflict, or terrorism. But this perception couldn't be further from the truth. People often cherry-pick verses from the Quran, taking them out of context, to argue that Islam endorses violence. But did you know the word Islam comes from the root word salama, which means peace? The essence of Islam is about submission to God and living a life of peace and compassion. For example, in Holy Quran, chapter 5, verse 32, it says,
"Because of that, we decreed upon the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul unless for a soul or for corruption in the land, it is as if he had slain mankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is as if he had saved mankind entirely. And our messengers had certainly come to them with clear proofs. Then indeed many of them, after that, throughout the land, were transgressors."
This verse highlights the sanctity of life and the immense value Islam places on protecting it. Far from promoting violence, Islam equates the unjust taking of a single life to the destruction of all humanity. In another verse, the Quran states,
"Fight in the way of Allah those who fight you, but do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not like transgressors."
This verse emphasizes that even in self-defense, Muslims are commanded not to overstep the bounds of justice and humanity.
This is also visible from statement of Hazrat Abu Bakr, the first caliph of Islam and a close companion of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Before sending his army to the Syrian borders, he instructed,
"Stop, O people, that I may give you 10 rules for your guidance in the battlefield. Do not commit treachery or deviate from the right path. You must not mutilate dead bodies, neither kill a child, nor a woman, nor an aged man. Bring no harm to the trees, nor burn them with fire, especially those which are fruitful. Slay not any of the enemy's flock, save for your food. You are likely to pass by people who have devoted their lives to monastic services. Leave them alone."
These principles showcase the ethical and humane standards Islam upholds even in times of war. A religion that does not allow harm to plants, even in a state of war, clearly reflects compassion and respect for all living beings. How then can such a faith be accused of promoting violence or its followers be labeled as terrorists? Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also said,
"A Muslim is the one from whose tongue and hands the people are safe."
This shows that a true Muslim is someone who ensures the safety and well-being of others, not someone who causes harm. But what about the actions of extremist groups who claim to represent Islam? These groups do not represent the 1.9 billion Muslims worldwide. Their actions contradict the very teachings of Islam. Think about this. Muslims make up about a quarter of the world's population. If Islam truly preached violence, wouldn't the world look very different? Instead, you'll find Muslims contributing to society as doctors, engineers, teachers, and humanitarians. Another common misconception is the idea that Islam was spread by force or the sword. It's not true, because Holy Quran explicitly states in chapter 2, verse 256,
"Let there be no compulsion in religion, for the truth stands out clearly from falsehood."
This verse makes it clear that faith cannot be forced upon anyone. The Quran consistently emphasizes freedom of belief and the power of personal conviction. The Medina Charter, arguably one of the first charter ever written, shows that Islam rejects the use of compulsion and force in religion. The Constitution protects all inhabitants of Medina, regardless of religion, and explicitly states that Jews and Muslims can practice their religions freely. One of the most common misconceptions about Islam is that it oppresses women. This couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, Islam elevated the status of women and granted them rights at a time when many societies denied them basic human dignity. In chapter 33, verse 35, the Quran states,
"Indeed, the Muslim men and Muslim women, the believing men and believing women, the obedient men and obedient women, the truthful men and truthful women, the patient men and patient women, the humble men and humble women, the charitable men and charitable women, the fasting men and fasting women, the men who guard their private parts and the women who do so, and the men who remember Allah often, and the women who do so for them Allah has prepared forgiveness and a great reward."
Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, also said,
"The best of you are those who are best to their wives."
Islam gave women the right to own property, seek education, and engage in business. Consider Hazrat Khadija, the wife of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. She was a successful businesswoman and one of the most respected figures in early Islam. Another example is Hazrat Aisha, a renowned scholar and teacher who narrated over 2,000 hadiths. These women played pivotal roles in Islamic history, shattering the misconception that Islam limits women's potential. The Quran also explicitly forbade inheriting women against their will. It says,
O you who believe, it is not lawful for you to inherit women by force, and do not harm in order to take back some of what you have given them, except in the case of a clear indecency.
so, does Islam oppress women? The evidence says otherwise. Islam not only acknowledges women's rights, but also honors their role in society as equals, scholars, and leaders. The misconception comes from cultural practices, not the teachings of Islam itself. Let's address the hijab, a topic that often sparks debate and misunderstanding. For many Muslim women, wearing the hijab is a choice that brings them comfort, identity, and a sense of safety. It reflects their commitment to modesty and allows them to be valued for their intellect and character rather than appearance. The Quran mentions modesty in chapter 24, verses 30 and 31. First, men are addressed.
Say, O Muhammad, to the believing men that they should lower their gaze and guard their private parts. That is purer for them. Indeed, Allah is all-knowing of what they do.
Then women are instructed.
And tell the believing women to lower their gaze and guard their modesty, and not to display their adornment except what is apparent of it, and to draw their veils over their heads.
This order places responsibility on men before women, highlighting that modesty is a shared value in Islam. In a world that values freedom, shouldn't every person have the right to choose what they wear? Just as some choose not to cover, others should have the freedom to wear the hijab without fear of judgment or discrimination. Another common misconception is that Muslims are illiterate or uninterested in education. In reality, Islam places immense importance on learning and knowledge. The first word revealed in the Quran was Iqra, meaning read. In chapter 96, verses 1 to 5, the Holy Book says,
Read in the name of your Lord who created. He created man from a clot of congealed blood. Read, and your Lord is most gracious, who teaches mankind through pen and writing. He teaches people what they do not know.
The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't just preach the importance of education. He demonstrated it through his actions. After the Battle of Badr, the Muslims captured 70 non-Muslim prisoners. Prophet treated them with dignity and declared that if each prisoner taught 10 Madinan children how to read and write, that would serve as his ransom and he would be set free. The Islamic Golden Age, spanning roughly from the 8th to the 14th century, was a period of unparalleled intellectual achievement. Muslim scholars made significant contributions to fields such as medicine, astronomy, mathematics, chemistry, and engineering, without which modern technology would be unthinkable. For instance, Al-Khwarizmi, known as the father of algebra, developed foundational concepts in mathematics. His works introduced algorithms, which are the backbone of today's computer science. Ibn Sina, a pioneer in medicine, wrote The Canon of Medicine, which was a standard textbook in Europe for centuries. Al-Zahrawi, often called the father of surgery, introduced surgical instruments and techniques that are still in use today. Al-Biruni contributed to astronomy and calculated the Earth's circumference with stunning accuracy long before such tools existed. Ibn al-Haytham, the founder of optics, conducted experiments on light and vision that led to the development of the modern camera. Another widespread misconception is that Muslims don't believe in Jesus or other prophets. It's not true. In fact, belief in all the prophets is a fundamental part of Islamic faith. There's an entire chapter of the Quran named after Mary, the mother of Jesus. Chapter 19 of Holy Quran, named after her honors, her piety and devotion, and recounts the miraculous birth of Jesus. Muslims believe that Jesus was one of the mightiest prophets of Allah and performed many miracles by Allah's permission. These include, number 1, his miraculous birth. Jesus was born to the Virgin Mary, a sign of Allah's power. The Quran states,
She said, O my Lord, how shall I have a son when no man has ever touched me? The angel answered, Thus shall it be. Allah creates whatever he wills. When he decides something, he merely says, Be, and it is.
Number 2, speaking as infant. As a baby, Jesus defended his mother from accusations, saying,
He replied, Indeed, I am a servant of Allah. He has given me the book, and he has made me a prophet.
Other miracles include breathing life into clay birds, healing the blind and the leper, raising the dead, and the heavenly table of food. Muslims also believe in the original gospel which was revealed to Jesus. While Muslims believe that current Bible has undergone changes over time, Muslims respect it as part of the divine revelations given to humanity. Another common misconception is that Islam allows forced marriages. This is absolutely false. In Islam, the free consent of both parties is a fundamental requirement for a valid marriage. The Quran clearly states that do not inherit women against their will. Additionally, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, explicitly condemned forced marriages. In one instance, a woman came to him saying her father had married her off without her consent. The Prophet annulled the marriage, affirming her right to choose. Forced marriages are cultural practices, not Islamic ones, and they contradict the core teachings of Islam, which prioritize justice, respect, and mutual agreement in all relationships. Let's address a quick misconception about polygamy. While Islam permits marrying up to 4 women, it is conditional upon treating them with absolute equality, a standard so strict that the Quran states,
But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only one.
in practice, the vast majority of Muslims have only one spouse. Polygamy was introduced in a specific historical context to protect widows and orphans and is not a blanket mandate.